Welcome back to another exciting season of Tech Sheck. And this time we thought we'd do something different. We're working with Open Global to highlight more prolific Pakistanis, not just in Pakistan, but outside of Pakistan. And today we have with us two unique and qualified sisters, Rosina and Uzma Samadani, who have started a company called Oculogica. What are they trying to achieve? Well, they're trying to help make the discovery and understanding of concussions much easier to interpret. And with that, what we'll present today is a summarized version of their discussion in an open global Gupshup. So with that, please take a few minutes, soak it up. If you feel it's important and you like it, hey, go watch the full episode. Thanks for joining us again. We'll see you soon.
Well, we ended up in Wisconsin because we started out there. So my parents moved to Wisconsin from Chicago. Rosina and I were both born in London, and they moved when I was only a few months old. I think Rosina was a couple of years older than me. We ended up in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. And I went to UW-Madison, so I stayed close to home. Rosina obviously went to MIT, but I was there from the age of basically 0 up until 20.
Yeah, we're born and bred Wisconsinites. There are a bunch of Wisconsinites on the call. I just want to acknowledge the head of our school, our high school, Joe Leonards, is on this call, and I'm only nervous about talking when he's in an audience, not anybody else.
Obvious role model for us is our parents. Both my mom and my dad are the kinds of people who always think of other people first. My dad has dedicated his entire career to being a physician in the service of others. And I remember when we were little, we went to a local ski place near our house in Wisconsin, and someone had a heart attack and my dad gave him CPR. And I remember thinking, wow, it's amazing what my dad can do. And my dad has always also been very innovative. My mom has been amazingly, amazingly supportive. So when we were kids, she always treated us as if we could do absolutely anything in the world and we could accomplish anything. And so I think that has been what's made the difference for us.
Yeah, my dad is very innovative. He's an early adopter. He's a really fun-loving, interested, curious person. There are actually several people on this call that know my dad. Scott Poznansky knows him. Joe Leonards knows him. Salik knows him. And he's just extremely interested in everything, people, technology. He's an early adopter. He encouraged all of us to do that, including my brother, who sort of, credits him with his innovation streak. And then my mom is just a huge believer in education, especially in education for women and girls, and has always been a huge advocate for that. And so there are 5 kids in our family, 4 girls and a boy. Everybody is, was encouraged to be to try and do the best they could in whatever they wanted to do. So we always felt like we could do anything. There were very few Pakistanis. We all knew each other. Salik was one of them. And we definitely helped each other out. There were also very few women. So overall, there were about 25% women when I entered MIT. And I think I was the 3rd or 4th American Pakistani, or any Pakistani woman that went to MIT. And in fact, I remember it was such a shock. It was such a culture shock to have that experience that when Uzma got into MIT, I said to her, don't come here. It's a really strange place. And I actually regret that a great deal. I think that having that stamp of MIT on your resume sort of changes everything. It's always with you. But that was my candid advice to her way back then, because it was such a male-oriented place. And then in the graduate school, there were 11% women when I went there. And I guess, part of that has actually helped us as we've progressed, because there's not a lot of VC funding for women. There aren't a lot of female founders. There aren't a lot of female CEOs, especially of medtech companies and, STEM-based companies. We grew up in a very unusual environment in which we thought that we were like everybody else. And then you go out into the world and you realize you're not like everybody else. And you wonder where the others are. And I guess we were raised in a different family, and we went to a high school that was really encouraging of girls and boys to pursue science. We really didn't think that we were that unusual until we were launched out.
Starting Oculogica was actually something that I had absolutely no intention of doing. So I became a neurosurgeon in 2006. I finished my residency 2007. I finished my fellowship. I got board certified in 2010. And around that time, I started working with brain injured patients. And what we were doing was we were trying to figure out if there was an intervention that we could try that would make them better. But we needed some way to determine if they actually were better. We needed an outcome measure. And that's how I developed eye tracking, was as a necessary means for assessing how a patient is doing. And then what happened is my original hope was, oh, I should just, put this on the internet, make it open access, and anyone can download it and use it. But the problem is that it's not feasible, because the way the healthcare system works is that if someone doesn't profit from something, then it's not integrated into the healthcare system. So unfortunately, if you want to develop a technology that can be widely implemented, it has to be something that someone can bill for and something that gets reimbursed. And actually, that's the challenge. I think in retrospect, had I known back then, how difficult this is, I actually did the easy part, because I developed the original basis for the technology. And then Rosina did the hard part, which is get it through the FDA, not just once, but she's gotten 4 devices cleared now, get the CPT code. And, Rosina did a ton of work when it came to getting the CPT code. She did her homework. She literally looked up all the people who were involved. She met with them. She had it planned out, like, almost like an attack on a foreign country. She literally had her targets. She knew what she wanted to say to them. She knew exactly how she was going to do this.
And then I had a fantastic lead actress who just, it was actually fun. Like, going to the AMA and getting that CPT code was actually a phenomenal time. And it ended up playing out like a Shakespearean play, because there's so many characters and they have so many egos. And it ended up being a great time. But I will answer Uzma's question. I mean, that question is, I think, from Uzma's perspective, she can't help it. She has these ideas and she has to do these things. And it's not like she's giving up being a neurosurgeon. She's a full-time neurosurgeon. She is the medical input to the company, but she gets to continue doing neurosurgery and still invent these things. It's phenomenal. She's lucky. Yeah, we grew up in Wisconsin. We're Packers fans. And so, that's actually very interesting, because we did not find the Packers through just purely being fans with them. We are funded by Golden Seeds, previous to this last round. And Golden Seeds is the largest angel group in the country, and they invest in women-led, women-founded companies. And they've got an enormous network. And they said to us, have you heard that the Green Bay Packers have a venture fund? And we thought, okay, well, why don't we call on them? And the Packers are a really different NFL team. They're community owned. They're not owned and operated by a billionaire. And they've got a very different attitude, I think, than any NFL team towards concussion. I think that they're the only NFL team that could have funded us or would even have talked with us at that stage, early on. And so we were put in touch with them, or rather notified about their existence by Golden Seeds. I then gave them a call, but I also used another contact of mine that happens to live in Green Bay and was at McKinsey with me. And he also sort of put in a word for me, which is what you need to do in VC. You're not always going to get the conversation right out of the gate. Titletown Tech, right from the beginning, has been phenomenal. And they're a joint fund between the Green Bay Packers and Microsoft. And the Packers are a really special team, and I'm not biased. They're community owned, and they have a very different attitude towards football and concussion.
The relationship between football and brain injury is very, very complex, because football has been very good for brain injury. It has raised incredible awareness of the problem. And because of football, people now know that, hey, if you get a concussion, there can be chronic effects of neurotrauma, there can be really significant consequences, and we need to take this seriously. On the other hand, because of brain injury, football has not had a great reputation. And I think what's happening is that's trickling down into other sports. So parents are pulling their kids out of youth sports just out of the fear that they will be injured. And sometimes, the risk benefit profile at that level is not equivalent to what it is at the NFL level. So for many, many children, the benefits of sports outweigh the risks, and it becomes very tricky. So I think that it's important to, keep all things in moderation. And, maybe it's not necessarily that football is the best thing or the worst thing, but rather that we have to think about it as somewhere in the middle, something that, should be made as safe as possible. And, children should be encouraged to play sports. I always say, when you work with your sibling, you don't have to hold punches. So, when I disagree with something Rosina says, she'll immediately get a text or a phone call. There's no delay.
And vice versa.
Yeah, we give each other quick feedback. We
You
sometimes
can get right to the heart of it. You don't have to mess around. So there are a lot of advantages. And, even right before this call, she gave me a quick little thing and I gave her a quick little thing. And, there's no formality whatsoever. And that can save you a lot of time, and a lot of
we
heartache.
communicate a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I think in neurosurgery, you learn to be very, very tough. It's the kind of work where, you can't give up. You have to be extremely resilient. You have to prepare and be very careful. And so, it's the same with.
It's
with
the same.
women.
Yeah. So as a woman at McKinsey, I was, I came in and there were 50% men, 50% women. And after 7 years, I was the last woman in my class. And there were 7 men and myself, and then I left. And that was back when McKinsey wasn't quite so PC and didn't really care about keeping women. And now they seem to have changed, which is fantastic. I hope that it goes more than skin deep. And being a woman in business is really tough. You have to be 3 times better than your male counterpart. That's just a fact. We would really love to see them be much further along, and we're shocked and dismayed that they're not. And in some ways, sometimes we feel like we're going backwards. It's actually ridiculous that in 2021, women have received 2.1% of VC funding. That's actually bad business. We should be funding female founders and CEOs because they work so darn hard and they're good investments. And you invest in our company, you're probably going to make money. And so, and it's actually also self-fulfilling. So if you fund a company, they have a higher chance of succeeding. And so, that's why some of the female founded companies and led companies are not succeeding, because they're not getting the funding. If you fund them, they actually would. Betting on women is it's a smart strategy from a return on investment perspective.
I would say that one of the things that Rosina and I always joke about is sometimes one of us will get invited to speak at some meeting. Usually it's me, and it'll often at football meetings or something. And I'll say, I'm the only speaker. So my suspicion is that they're inviting me specifically because I'm a woman, or I'm the only female speaker. So I always feel like, that the reason that they're inviting me is that I'm female. And I said, Rosina, do you want to take turns being the token female speaker? And, it happens. But on the other hand, at least we're on stage and they have no choice but to listen to us once we're up there. And, we've been to meetings where we sometimes, I'll say things that other people in the room need to hear. And I think that's good. The key thing is don't give up. No matter what obstacles get thrown in your path, you just want to keep going. I have a research lab that I run at the University of Minnesota. I have 4 graduate students, 3 of them are female. And, I try to be a good role model and mentor to them. I've had in my career probably about 60 or 70 students at different levels, from high school, college, med school, residency, postdocs, who've rotated in my lab or worked with me in a research capacity. And I try to continue to mentor them throughout. And I've actually had people who've come to me as high school students and worked with me for 10 years. And it's a very rewarding experience then to see these people go on to build their own careers. I think it's very helpful to them, because when they see that someone like me is still alive in academia, it gives them hope for themselves.
Just showing up and existing is actually teaching people. So the fact that I knock on the doors of VCs and I don't look like anybody in the company, that helps them. They're like, oh, okay, there is somebody out there that looks like this, and is this gender, is this race, and is in a hardcore science field, and has got a technology that's actually clinically validated and has got published papers. Just showing up, even if they don't fund you, is educating them. The women basically just have to, kind of sometimes beat these guys into submission a little bit. It's not that they're unkind, it's that they're unaware.
Right.
Absolutely just don't realize.
Well, my son is 20 and he is well versed in how not to be racist or sexist, and that the world is not always just. So whenever he, he would come home from a game and he would say the referees were on the other team, and I would say to him, well, that's just like how it is in real life. The referees are on
the other team.
And you have to be prepared to survive in an unjust system, because that's the way it is in life. Don't sweat the small stuff, That's really it.
Yeah, don't sweat. Yeah, try to step back, see the bigger picture. Tell Uzma to go to MIT. That's what I would have told my 25-year-old. Although I think I would have had to tell my 20-year-old self, 21-year-old self that.
I think, you know, I don't regret anything. I feel like we've been very lucky, and we inshallah are going to succeed. And I have zero regrets about any event that's happened in my life. Every single detail has been, you know, been meant to be.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this summarized version of what Oculogica is doing and the unique sisters behind this project. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe. We need more candidates for Tech Sheck too, so please communicate with us accordingly. And with that, I bid you all Allah Hafiz.